Welcome to another edition of Boundaries and Brotherhood. This is one of our first ever TikTok live events. And I would say this is all for you guys, whether you're on TikTok, whether you're watching this on the live YouTube. I'm your host, Gordon Watt from Boundaries and Brotherhood, one of the original creators. And my host, my partner, Doc, introduce yourself and let us know what we're doing today while I get it all set up again.
Today, Dr. Keith Fairclough, first time going live on TikTok, but I'm all over the place. But today, guys, we're going to be talking about the power of letting things go from our life, why it's so important to be able to do that to move forward. That's what we're going to be discussing today. And especially us as men, because I know we want to try to hold on to everything and do everything, and because that's part of being a man and making sure you're successful, all that stuff like that. But I'll be honest, one of the best things that we could possibly do is learn to let things go. If it's not serving us, if it's not moving the needle forward, if it's hindering us, or if it's just a weight, we got to learn how to let it go and be okay with letting it go and recognize that we're not a failure for letting certain things go. As a matter of fact, sometimes the best way to make a tree survive and do well is to prune off those pieces of it that are actually dying and dead, that are taking up huge nutrients and space that don't need to be taken up.
Or we just got to chop off that branches on sometimes, right? A lot of times you just go, and guys, it's not like you have to just cut off everybody like brother, but sometimes that's the best move to do because a lot of the times you don't know what fulfilling or situations you might be in. And the old people are just going to be holding you back. And this is why we chose this topic, because one of the main topics that I had to learn was when I got released, I had to come to Vegas. I didn't know nobody because I knew I had to change. If I went back to Hawaii, I'd be doing the same old stuff that everybody else be saying doing. But that's why I chose this topic, because how many of you are still stuck in that same cycle, seeing your old friends, not doing anything different, and figuring out that something's got to change? This is why I have Doc. That topic was so smoking. Doc, what are some of the things you're seeing in the place in your profession?
Well, I think people, what I say is I think I see people, again, trying to do it all. I think that's the thing that I see. You got people trying to do it all. People, more men trying to do it all, trying to, hold on to certain things and just as basically like, if I can't do it all, then there's a problem with me. If I can't do it all, then, it means I'm not a man. And the fact of the matter is no one was ever called to do it all. And if you go even the spiritual route, for those who are Christians, and even the Bible talks about, we're one body, but many members, meaning that every part of our body has a job to do, and it doesn't concern itself with things that aren't, moving whatever that job, that purpose is, move forward. It's just like that. So it's important for us to recognize that, okay, is this thing in my life, is it good for me? Is this thing helping me to move forward? Is it a weight? Is it a burden? And if it is, you've got to learn how to cut that thing off, or at the very least, put it to the side. Like, I can't do that right now. That's not something I can focus my energy on right now. I don't have time to focus my energy on that right now. I got to focus on myself, make myself better. I got to focus on my kids. I got to focus on my wife. I got to focus on the things that are important, that are vitally important, that move the needle forward. So that's what I see. I see a lot of us as men trying to do it all, and recognizing that you don't necessarily have to do it all, because again, you don't have anything to prove to anybody. That's the big thing. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. That's what I see.
I mean, a lot of the times, most of us, we want to hold on to old things. It's almost like a friend hoarder. You know what I mean? Because you're so used to doing certain things in a certain way. Because if you keep on to your old friends and you're not looking for something new, you will do the same stuff over and over again for nothing. And that's what Doc is seeing. Because some of the things that he says is like, if you keep on saying the same old place and you're wondering why things are the same for you, what are you going to do something different? Sometimes you just got to cut, like Doc said, you got to cut the branch off to regrow another leaf. Basically,
It's true.
when you don't cut off you don't have to graft, you don't have no room to grow. And it's all about, with Boundaries and Brotherhood and with Doc's channel, with Freedom, Change, Success, it's a lot of times that you have to take that chance, even though it's uncomfortable, even though you're going into unknown. Last week's session was closing that door, holding that door closed. When you all the time you had the keys, right? You had the keys for the house. You had the keys to the yard. You had the keys to unlock your emotional well-being and whatever else you got going on. Doc, what do you say to your clients when you run into this situation?
the first thing I say is, what is the purpose? Why do you think you have to carry all that? Like, who said you had to carry all that? Who said that you have to maintain these things that are not serving you anymore, that are actually hindering you? But I want my clients to think about that. I want them to really stop and think like, okay, this relationship is just completely draining me, right? They're high maintenance, they're super needy, they always got a
Ooh.
problem, they're just draining me. And the thing is, we have to be very careful about adopting the whole sunken cost fallacy. Like, because I was with this person this whole time, or because they did this, or because they did that, or been with me, then that means I now have to put up with this behavior, these things that are holding me down. You don't have to. But I need my clients to be able to start exploring that. So that's the first route I take. I want them to start exploring that relationship. I want them to start exploring what it does for them. I want them to start exploring, what kind of belief they've created as to why they need to continue to maintain it, although it's not helping them. And more often than not, it's hurting us and it's slowing us down. So that's the first thing I would want my clients to do, is to be able to start analyzing that thing they have to possibly let go of. Like, why am I still holding it? Why am I still in this relationship? Is it serving me anymore? Is it helping me anymore? Do I feel like I'm giving more than I'm getting back? Are they willing to change? I want them to start exploring that whole idea of, okay, why should I let this thing go? What is it about this thing that is basically toxic to me, or it's not helping me, that I now have to let it go? That's the first thing I would have my clients do, to really start doing that mind work, so that they can make sure they are very aware of what the full gravity of this relationship is on their life.
Correct. I mean, it's really intense because even for these modern men dating in these modern times, and they want to hold on. I don't get it when I watch this video. How do these men move on? That's wild. I mean, I'm getting a call on Telegram from one of my clients just as we speak right now. That's so cool. He's one of those things about letting go is honestly figuring out a way to move on with your life so you don't get scarred. I just did an inspirational video this morning. Like, some of the scars that you're going through right now is you probably asked for something from the man up above, but he didn't give you what you asked for. He gave you the process to become what you wanted. But most people forget about the process. Most people just want the result. When you start asking the man up above or wherever else, and you want wealth, fame, finance, yeah, he'll give you that at the end if you last the process and absorb all the information and relate it to yourself. But at the same time, one of those processes is letting go of some emotions, letting go of some of your friends. Sure, you can say acquaintances. I'm not saying that burn the bridge and blow the thing up, but those are one of those things that you have to do to move forward. Does that make sense, Doc?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Doc had a situation the other day when he was going off on this thing of letting go of the emotions, letting go of this baggage, letting go of these friends, letting go of the being uncomfortable with the whole situation. But because he's seeing it in his daily practice as a professional. So when you see guys like us helping other people, now I wouldn't say coaching, but encouraging people, inspiring people, putting stuff that's out there that's going to make it worth your while. Does it make a difference when you do it?
When you cut people off?
Yes.
Absolutely. Gordon, give me 1 second though. I was
Sure.
just thinking about this thing for live, and what I just recognized is that people can hear me, but they can't hear you or see you. So it looks like I'm talking to nobody, and then I'm sitting there paused for a second. So I got to find a way to get that worked out.
No worries.
I'm
No
gonna-
worries. Guys, leave me in the comment right here if you're hearing Doc, because I have him next to the speaker, right? Because we're also streaming this live on YouTube with a Zoom call, so I can let me know in the comments if you're hearing Doc on the speaker and you're hearing me, because I have 2 mics going on. We need to get 1,000 followers. Hit that follow button, hit that diamond button, hit whatever button that you need to do, because we're still recording our Zoom call for our Boundaries and Brotherhood.
Yeah, I'll roll that out to them on TikTok, because I just realized, like, oh shoot, I'm literally just talking. But yeah, so as far as what you were saying, as far as letting go and whatnot,
How important and powerful is letting go of your old past, some of the old friends, to move on as a professional you seeing in the space?
So it's really important, because they're saying that if you're the smartest person in the room, you got to change rooms. right?
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing in life. If you're advancing far beyond your friends, you need to change your friend group. Now, what this does not mean that you need to cut them off in the sense of like, I don't talk to you anymore, unless hanging around people like that can be very detrimental to you, right? So obviously, if you were in a gang or something like that, or around people who are doing drugs or are constantly drunk, or people who are cheating on their spouses and things like that, you need to separate yourself from that as much as possible, because you don't want that attached to your name and where you're trying to go. That's really important. I think people need to understand is that when you let go of like a friend group or a friend or something along those lines, you're doing so because it's really, really not good for you, right? And we're not necessarily saying as you go up, forget about the little people, forget about the people, that you were running with before. What we are saying is, though, specifically speaking towards groups of friends that you had that were engaged in behaviors that are very detrimental to you, can be very detrimental to you. And regardless of how long you've known them, you have to stay away, right? But if you just have a friend group that maybe they're just cool doing what they're doing, right? Let's say you have a friend group and you want to be an entrepreneur, but they don't want to be entrepreneurs. They're cool just working the 9 to 5 and everything like that. I'm not saying you got to cut people like that off. You can still go to the barbecues, hang with the family, go on vacation, and things like that. But if you're trying to advance professionally, or you're trying to advance in your marriage, right? So if you're a guy who just got married but has only just single friends, it's not saying cut your single friends off, but you really got to change rooms and go around people who are married, right? So you can get more experience, so you can get more knowledge, so you can get more camaraderie, more networking, so you can make sure you have people you can talk to that will give you good advice about your marriage. A single guy can't tell you how to be married, right? He can't. You're not dating anybody now. So clearly you don't know how to do it because you haven't locked anybody down. So you want to make sure as you're advancing yourself, as you're getting better, you want to find those groups of people, those networks of others who are similar to you, that are at least trying to get better. You want to put yourself into that network and pull from it. Right. So that's what I would say as far as that's concerned. So I know we use the word letting go and cutting people off and things like that. I only recommend cutting someone off in the worst case scenarios where it's like this person is a danger to myself, themselves,
Right.
or it could be a danger to my reputation. And speaking to which, it's just like the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing.
Yep.
They're definitely afraid to release any information regarding it because of the names of the people who are on there, right?
Correct.
But if you knew, just like some people, Cat Williams with the whole Diddy thing, he said, if Diddy asks you to party, you got to tell him no, right? He peeped game. So guess whose name is not in this thing as far as the Diddy is concerned? Cat Williams. Why? Because he saw, okay, there's something wrong going on. There's some freaky stuff. I don't want no parts of that, right? Someone should have said, hold on now, this guy having parties and what's going on at these parties? Nah, if it doesn't line up with your values and belief, you don't need to be hanging around them, right?
Correct.
Unfortunately, what ended up happening is you have a lot of high profile people, because this is kind of passionate for me because I'm not a big fan of kids getting raped and molested.
Oh, no. I mean, that's
right. These people knew. It wasn't a surprise. It wasn't they got there and like, whoa, what the heck? Nah, I got to get up out of here. Mind you, the people he was running with are millionaires and billionaires. So the moment they got there and saw something freaky or weird going on, what they should have done was like, nah, I'm not the one. I'm out of here. I got to go. And someone should have alerted the authorities. But we won't go too deep into that. Basically, what I'm saying is, you got to know where you should be and who you're around. And if they're your friend group, they're not up to any good. They're not going to advance you. They're going to hurt you and bring you down. You need to leave immediately. Those are the people you need to cut off. But if it's just like, we're good people. However, we just, we're not on what you're on, right? We're not, you're trying to be a businessman. I'm not really on that. You're out here trying to be married. I'm not really on that. Like, no disrespect to you, but that's just not my thing. And we need to have the wherewithal to say, that's okay, that's cool. But I got to be around people who are married, who are cultivating their relationship. I got to be around that. Or if I'm single and I want to get married one day, you probably start hanging around some married people so you can get a better idea of what that marriage life is like. I say all that to say that's, yeah.
But you're absolutely right, because even for me, I always come back to what would the judge tell me if I got into a wreck again? He or she would say, you know better. You have countless opportunities to do some stuff just to come up.
Yeah.
But that's not in my best interest at the time, because a lot of times, what are you willing to risk? You can risk both ways. I can let go of a friend and risk a lot of things. I can also let go of some emotional baggage to propel me so I can pour in my cup a little bit more. A lot of times when you pour into other people, you get to have a different situation, a different look, a different angle, a different thing. And that's what we want for you guys to have, because a lot of times you might not see the same angles. Like Doc was saying, you might be with a friend group that's just different. You might want to do something else, but that's really not going to get you to where you need to be if you're not willing to let go. Whether you're letting go of your past, you're letting go of some of your friendships, you can still be acquaintances. You can still be. I don't want you to blow the thing up. I don't want you to throw a whole grenade and blow up the whole bridge so you never can go back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, to move forward, sometimes you just got to cut people off. You know,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's just the way it goes. For you to grow, you need to cut people off and have a different behavior. For some of us that watching on this video, some of that, you have to do it. If not, you just pull you back. In Hawaii, we have a saying like, it's called being a crab in a bucket. The crab is going to pull you up because nobody wants to see you get hit.
Yeah.
Crab wants to jump out of the bucket. The other crab is trying to pull you down because he's trying to get out of the bucket, but somebody else is going to pull you back down. Same situation if you don't let go. You got to be able to look down, kick that other crab off, and jump out of the bucket and not look back until you say you actually are happy with yourself.
That's correct. Correct. We live in a world, if you're around people who hate to see you succeed,
Yes. Yes.
then that means that you need to be,
Yep.
you're around people that talk about how you changed up, but they're not saying it for the good. They're saying it for the bad. Like you changed up for the worse just because you bettered yourself. You went to school, you got a degree, or you guys started your business, or you're making more money, or you're not going out clubbing, or you're whatever it is, you're taking care of yourself. They're saying you're changing up, and you did it for the right reasons, but they're saying it's a bad thing. And they started throwing around, you think you're better than us and things like that. Those are groups you want to cut off.
Absolutely.
That's not helping. Any friend group you're in,
Absolutely.
if they're not building you up,
Yep.
then you don't need to be in that group. And I'm not saying now, some people might take this, Gordon, and be like, oh yeah, I got to get out of here because they said all these negative things about me, yada, yada, yada. Let's not talk about, and we're talking about being accountable. That's different.
Yeah, very different. Explain that.
Right? And if a friend group you don't want to let go of is what's going to hold you accountable. So if they're holding you accountable,
that's a real friend.
That's a real friend. That's a group of people you really want to make sure you're spending time with and spending time around. But these are things that are important to keep in consideration. It's so important for us to know and keep in mind because, the 11th man doesn't keep people around him who are not helping or serving or being productive or building him up. He doesn't keep people around him like that. You should be in a group of people that are building each other up, looking out for one another, lifting each other up. If they're like that, but yet you're still advanced, it doesn't mean you have to cut those people off. You might spend less time with them because they don't really do what you do anymore. However, it doesn't mean you got to cut them off. That's a really big, I really want to drive that point home. You don't just cut everybody off just because, I'm at a new level now, so I can't deal with y'all. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about letting go of people who are holding you down, holding you back, are a hindrance to you, who are toxic to you, who drain your energy, who take from you. We're talking about cutting those people off. And when I say that, I'm talking about family, friends, it doesn't matter across. If it's someone that's doing that, you need to make sure you're able to cut them off. And again, explore that.
Absolutely.
Explore that.
Guys, if you're on this live, watching on TikTok, I'm recording in Zoom. It's also streaming YouTube. But something just popped up. This is kind of interesting. We're learning as we go, right? Because, guys, there's a rose thing that has to be clicked on. If you guys like this comment and you agree with Doc, hit that rose emoji down there and send us a gift. That's something cool because if you agree to what you say, you're going through a situation that you might be going through and you don't know how to cut things off, you can either reach out to us at Boundaries and Brotherhood or reach out to Doc at Freedom Change Success. Look him up online. Hit that rose button. I want to see what happens because a lot of the times, this is something new for us, guys. Because I always like lives on Facebook, lives on YouTube. The first time I'm doing it on TikTok live, and this is kind of like something that's kind of cool though. But I'll give you a perfect example. Doc hit something on the head for me because when they said like, "Oh, Gordon, you've changed," I said I took that thing as an MFN compliment because the person I was before would not even let you talk to me like that. I'd probably flash off. I'd probably do something crazy. But at the end of the day, one of the things that's perfect for me was like, that's when I knew I was doing the right thing. I made a promise to myself. I made a promise to God. If I ever get a second chance, a third chance at the life I'm living now, I would never go back. And I've kept held with that promise to myself, to God, to my family. Because the person I was before doesn't fit who I am today because I let go. One of my counselors, one of my counselors or case managers, when I left Lompoc, they said, "You're gonna
Mhm.
go to Las Vegas? You're gonna go right dab smack in the middle of it." And I said, "I have to get away from Hawaii because Hawaii to me is worse. If I go
Yeah.
to Vegas, I don't know nobody. I can kind of like do my thing
Yeah.
and let my probation pass." And then the compliment of Gordon, you changed a whole lot. I take that to heart because I'm proud of that. Not
Yeah.
because my old friends still know the old me. They treat Andrea tells me like, why do these guys treat you like she don't get it? They treat you like God sometimes. Like, I'm like, because she don't understand it. But you have to understand that the person that you are now, what are you doing? These baby steps now to become better in the future.
Yeah.
One of the steps is letting go. Doc would tell
Yeah.
you from a professional standpoint. You mean,
Yes.
give me a story, Doc, of a problem a client might have had, and you gave the same advice.
I think, I'll share from my own experience.
Okay.
I'm trying to be careful about, sharing people's things. I know you can change names or whatnot, but
In
to tell you the honest truth,
relationships.
like I would say, like for me, I'm trying to think how my relationships go. So I'll use this. It'll be maybe more general, right? So I was talking to my wife about certain rules I have with loaning out money to people, right?
Oh, okay.
And the rule I have is I don't mind, letting people have money and things like that. However, you kind of it's kind of can be like a one and done unless it's someone that pays me back, right? And so
Right.
the rule I have as far as this is concerned is that if someone comes to me for money and it's like, hey, I'm really down on my luck, whatever, I'll spot you. But then when they try to make a habit of it, I will not continue to, I'll give you advice, but I'm not going to give you any money. So I set that boundary up. And so that, it just is what it is. You don't have a choice but to deal with it. Why? Because I see that's going to be something that's going to drain me. And so I have to let that go. Right. And so obviously when you don't give the money, the relationship kind of dies off on its own because that's what they were there for in the first place. So that's one example of it. I'll be honest, Gordon, I've been thankful. If I am thankful, I haven't had to make that decision too often because here's the thing, guys, if you can pick the right group from the beginning, you really don't have to worry about letting them go. Like I
True.
look at my friends and whatnot, I'm so thankful to God how he allowed me to be in the same circles as some of these people because they're all high quality people. So I haven't really had to let anyone go as far as that's concerned. But I will say this, I did have a client who we were working through this. And one of the things that they were struggling with was their friend group, right? Their friend group was not really supportive. Their friend group only focused on themselves. Their friend group would pour and take from them and never pour back into them. The friend group would have like backhanded compliments and all these things like this. And so working with this client, I let them kind of the same process I went through here earlier. Like you need to evaluate that. Like, do you feel like that's what you deserve? You know, do you feel like you're getting anything from that? Do you like what exactly are you getting from it? So we explored the relationship. We talked about it. When they came to the realization that I really am not getting anything from these relationships, what they started to do was they started to cut them off. They started to not answer the phone. They started to not go out with them. And they were able to cut those friends off a lot easier because they knew from when they were not pouring into their life. But I will also caution this, in doing that, you have to cut people off and you haven't found a new group yet. There's going to be a period of you being alone. You got to keep that in mind.
True.
When period of you being alone, you got to be okay with
True.
that, right?
True.
Now that my client is not alone now, but I will tell you this: even when they were alone, it was more peaceful. They had more peace within themselves. They had more energy. They had all the things that are being drained from them constantly. Their self-esteem shot back up, all returned back to them. And so now they're able to do more and be moved forward with clarity and focus and purpose. Whereas before, when they're holding on to that stuff, it's just bogging them down. And so, and I have other clients like that as well. So I've had some clients that are better off financially. And because of that, people are asking them for money, asking for money, asking for money. And as a result, it's, I have to talk, work with them. Hey, I understand that you have this relationship with these people, but that's not what it should be about, right? Because we're not talking about people who it's like, oh man, all right, well, whatever. We're talking people who just want you to cash them out. That's not helpful. That's when you got to start setting up those boundaries. And here's the thing, though, because we talk about letting people go. What letting people go looks like is you actually create and set your boundaries. And then what happens when you set your boundaries, you say, I will not tolerate poor treatment anymore. as you set those boundaries up, because you will not allow the poor treatment, and these people really had no other interest except what they could get from you, and then that you're making them actually engage in a relationship with you and work and obey your boundaries. They don't want to be around you anymore because you're not an easy target. You're not a dump for their toxic issues and their problems, right? You're not a ATM for them to pull from. You're not, a one night stand or a booty call in the middle of the night or anything like that. I guess that's more so for women. But in any
For
case,
men too.
I usually don't
More
calls from
women.
women at 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning and say, I'm trying to come on through. Maybe sometimes kind of like that. But generally speaking, though, when you set those boundaries up, people will weed themselves out. That's the beautiful thing about having those boundaries. Once you set them out and you hold them in place, those people will weed themselves out. So those people that say you change and we don't like it or whatever, it's okay. You're going to weed yourself out. Remember, rejection is not a bad thing. If someone rejects you, that means you dodged a bullet. That means they're saying, I don't want to follow your boundaries. I do want to treat you the way you want to be treated. I want to treat you however I want to treat you. I want to take from you. So if they leave, if they reject you, it's okay because they're doing you a favor. They're doing you a solid. Now you don't got to worry about that. So when it comes to letting people go, a big, big, big part of it is setting up those boundaries first. So if you set those boundaries up, I'll follow those boundaries. That's cool. I can do that. So I'll say the boundary part, you got to have that in place because it has to finally come to a point where you say, no more. I will not be treated this way another day. And once you do that, then the people start weeding themselves out. So for those of you who are concerned about conflict and things of that nature and don't want to get into or explain yourself, all you got to do at first, at least, is to set that boundary and let them know how you want to be treated and do not tolerate it under any circumstance at all. No matter what they have going on in their life, this is how I want to be treated. And once you do that, that's going to weed out a lot of people automatically. And anybody else who's left, who still doesn't want to abide by your boundaries, is pushing up against them or maybe trying to ridicule you or shame you into even having them, then you can have that conversation where you could tell them, listen, this is how I want to be treated. There's nothing wrong with how I want to be treated. And if you don't want to do that, then you don't need to be in my life, period. Like this, because eventually some people need that tough in your face action, in words. Some people need that, right? That's what they're asking for.
I mean, one of the main things that, guys, our topic today was letting go of people in your past and figuring out what you can do to set those boundaries so that you don't feel like a piece of crap. Because some people are going to try and make you feel like a piece of crap for being a person of change. You got to have some integrity. You got to have some boundaries. You got to have a lot of things in your place so that you can cross that bridge and sometimes don't blow the bridge up. But sometimes you got to pluck some strings out. So it's kind of like people got to have access to you that really want you around. Doc's message today was about having that boundary and letting that people go, because the people that you let go, if they feel a certain way, guys, girls, whoever's watching this, that's on them. That's really on them because they might be taking, they might be your emotional vampire, right? That's sucking and draining the life out of you for no reason at all. And this is why you got to be able to set boundaries. Now, you might see the banner in the background, right? Boundaries and Brotherhood. From Freedom, Change, Success. Want to be a brother to give you the right advice through coaching and professional, because Doc is a real professional doctor, right? This is what he does for a living. The brotherhood is so that you can have some sort of camaraderie, whether you're female, male, mostly males, because even for some of these males, when women start running over them and they don't know how to let go, you got a big ass problem.
Yeah.
Now, understanding that sometimes letting go is the best thing you can do, but also drawing that line so you can have some sort of pride and ego in yourself to have being, not, I won't say the difference, that's got to be another subject between the modern man and the older man. We had a video about that before, but he's seeing this in some of his clients, right? Because the integrity, the lines drawn, the people letting go, the emotional baggage. You don't want to go to your next friend group and have the same baggage, talk about your old friends like you talking like the ex.
Yeah.
I never would have met my wife if I didn't move out here, have the family I have the life I have, my kids, at 50-something.
Yeah.
But, like I said earlier in the video, I made a promise to myself that I've kept and held to legacy. And this legacy builds on what I'm doing for my family and my two boys. Because let's face it, I just had one of the guys in Hawaii, a musician legend, just died today, 55 years old.
Jeez.
Music legend, young, probably had reality show. I just turned 57 Tuesday. You know, my time is limited, but we're learning as we go. You know, who says you can be close to 60 and make a TikTok now? What would be your best advice if you're going through a situation?
I would say, don't be concerned about the backlash. Do not be concerned about the backlash. That holds a lot of people back. I'm scared of what kind of what they're going to say or how they're going to feel. What if they reject me? What if they leave me alone? Like, do not be scared of the backlash. And sometimes there will be backlash. Fine, once you cut people off or tell them, that you want your piece or your space or whatever, they're going to easily respect it and just. There's some people who are going to be really upset, really frustrated. They're going to call you all types of names. They're going to kind of reject you. They're going to try to turn against you. They're going to try to turn other people against you. Hold fast, right? Hold
Yes.
fast to your integrity and hold fast to knowing that I'm doing the right thing for me, right? Because what's going to end up happening is, because especially if you're concerned about your image, what's going to end up happening is people are going to see through it. Right. The people who are
Absolutely.
truly in your corner, the people who truly love you, the people who truly care about you, they're going to
Yes.
see the issues that it's not you, it's them, it's that other person, because it's not healthy for them to go around sharing and splitting these things out or splitting up, trying to break up friendships and things like that. And anybody who listens to me, I give you a perfect example. When I was in school, I was in 7th grade at the time, and I was being bullied. The crazy part is a lot of the people who were partaking in this were people that I grew up with it from kindergarten all the way up to 7th grade. And so it's not fun having a whole bunch of people against you. However, after me and the bully fought and I beat the bully up, I finally recognized I only have like 2 friends left that I've known for a while. They actually they didn't follow the crowd, right? So addition by subtraction, I found out who was really with me, and I found out who was fake. And so by doing this, by you being able to essentially hold those boundaries and have them, you're going to be prepared to lose people. And you got to be okay with that, because again, if these people really were in your corner, if these people really did care, if they say they did, they would not have a problem with you setting up boundaries on protecting your peace and protecting your mindset and protecting your emotional health. They would not be upset about that. As a matter of fact, they'd probably be apologetic. That's the only real answer
Yep.
you should get. Someone say, "Oh, my bad, I didn't know that you were going through that," or "I didn't know I was adding that much pressure. I didn't know," whatever it was, right? "My bad, I didn't mean to do that." So those of you want to come around, but everybody else, no matter what they say or what they do, as long as you hold fast to your integrity and keep doing what you're supposed to do, you're not going to have an issue or a problem. You're going to find the new friend groups. And again, yeah, maybe I lost a lot of, they weren't really friends, obviously, if they just abandoned me that quick,
True.
um,
True.
but I saved myself a lot of time and energy, because for one, it takes time to build friendships. It takes time and again, commitment and whatnot. So addition by subtraction, right? By losing those people who were fake, clearly fake, I was then able to focus my time and energy to the people who were real, spend time with them.
Yep.
And so that's just something to keep in mind. Yeah, there will be backlash with some people, especially the closer the relationship is, the more backlash you'll get, or the more because could be a sense of entitlement there. But just hold the line. Do not move from the boundary. You must enforce your boundaries. A boundary that is not enforced is useless. It's not a boundary at all. That's like saying we have borders, but we let everybody and anybody get through at any point in time, and it doesn't really matter. Like, you don't really have borders then. The boundary, you think about it, and I always say, remember, the boundaries, it's not about keeping people out. It's about protecting who's inside. You're inside those boundaries you're setting. Anyone who loves you and cares about you have to abide by those same rules. They're going to love you and care and not judge like that, right? Hold your accountable, not judge you. Those are the ones that make it through the boundary. I'll give you a quick science lesson, right? When it comes to cells, cells have a membrane, and not everything can get into that membrane. There are certain receptors in certain places that are designed for certain things, right? So if you don't fit that receptor, you cannot get into the cell. So instead, all the cells protect what's on the inside. Only anything that's coming in is supposed to help what's on the inside. If it's not to help what's on the inside, I don't have a receptor for that. So you can't come in. The only one I think that really has no issue is water, because water is accepted by everybody, right? Which in this case, water could be considered love. And I could get into the whole spiritual aspect of that with like God is love. And so then that's why it's easy to permeate no matter what. But for what we're talking about here, we're not talking about God, and your boundaries are setting up those receptors for this is how I want to be treated. So these are the type of traits that you have to have before you can enter into my boundary, become into my inner spot where you're now pouring in and helping. So that's so I say all that. So that's how we'll close it out. Just be prepared for the backlash, and just realize that setting up those boundaries allows you to control who's going to come into your life and pour into you, and it keeps out the people who only want to come in and take and use and abuse you.
Beautiful. In fact, I have to go back to the replay and get that one because, guys, if you like this type of content, if you liked anything that you heard today, you can watch the full video on our YouTube channel and stream it live. But this is the first time we did it on TikTok. I like this platform because we never did do this. And the topics that we'll be talking about, it's going to be detrimental and it's going to help you move forward with your life. If anybody knows moving forward from somebody like me with my shady past, my history, I hate to label myself, but I have the experience, guys. Doc has a professional experience. This is why we partnered up. This is why we collaborate. Guys, I just want to say thank you for joining us on this live. Thank you for joining us on, we had a lot of comments on our YouTube, or we have people watching. But as we get better with doing this, come back next week. Between 10, 10:30 is when we usually start. Sometimes we have some technical difficulties. But I'm Gordon Watt from Boundaries and Brotherhood, and I'll see you next week.
This is Dr. Keith Fairclough. You guys take care. Have a good and blessed day. We'll see you next week. And again, just take these things to heart.
Yes.
If anything, at the very least, I'll leave you with this. Think about your relationships. Just stop and think about your relationships. I want you to stop and think, is this serving me or is it pulling away from me? And then you can start working on making a decision on how to let go of that person, that relationship. And we didn't even get into it really about opportunities, Gordon, but sometimes it's not about letting go of people. Sometimes it's about letting go of opportunities. Right?
True. Very true. Very true.
And that goes, well, I won't go into that. That can be a whole video for itself because there are not everything that glitters is gold.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people that should have walked away sooner, but never did. And now they're stuck, right? And they're paying for it. But I'll leave it at that, guys.
All right, guys.
Go back, self-reflect, and come back next week.
Come back next week, guys, especially on you guys at TikTok. This is kind of fun, actually. Hello, guys. I'll see you next week.
You guys, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, and join the conversation next week.